According to the 2019 United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, about 14.3 million Nigerians aged between 15 and 64 years use drugs outside prescription, and 10 million are using cannabis. The data suggests that the prevalence of the previous year drug use in Nigeria is more than twice the global average of 5.6%. For this week's episode of the program, we'll be looking at the 2019 World Drug Day report. Hello there. Welcome to Dateline Abuja. I'm Ibrahim Adra. Now, the Abuja Environmental Protection Board is threatening to sanction butchers who burn slaughtered animals with tires. The sanction could include jail terms for defaulters. Now, we will give you details in the FCT in Focus segment. The interview segment features the country representative, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, Mr. Oliver Stolpe. But first, what are the stories that made the headline within the week in the nation's capital?
The Central Bank Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, has announced plans to launch the trade monitoring system targeted at reducing processing of exports documents from a period of 1 week to 1 day. Mr. Emefiele disclosed the plan during the presentation of his 5-year plan.
We intend to aggressively implement our 500 billion facility aimed at supporting the growth of our non-oil exports, which would help to improve non-oil export earnings. We would launch a trade monitoring system, TRMS, in October 2019, which is an automated system that will reduce the length of time required to process export documents from 1 week to 1 day. This measure will help support our efforts at improving our non-oil exports of goods and services.
The Independent National Electoral Commission is working to improve the electoral processes in the country. That's according to the chairman of the commission, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, who was speaking at the review meeting for the 2019 general election with electoral officers.
Every democracy is work in progress. So please feel free to suggest, advise on all the issues relating to the conduct of elections, the whole gamut. And you have the protection of the chairman.
The Presidential Implementation Committee on Financial Autonomy for State Legislature and Judiciary has submitted its report to President Muhammadu Buhari. President Buhari set up the committee in March of 2019 to recommend ways to the application, operations and observance of the relevant sections of the Constitution.
It is about the constitutional order. It is about the sustenance of the requirement of the Constitution as it relates to the independence of the state judiciary and indeed the state legislature. And the committee had indeed presented a report to the President.
President Buhari says his administration's goal of an inclusive, secure and prosperous Nigeria is achievable with the full support and cooperation of governments, traditional and religious leaders. The president spoke when he received a delegation from NASARAWA state who paid him a courtesy visit.
The incessant conflicts between herders and the farmers is an age-long problem. This administration is determined to find lasting solutions. I implore all responsible leaders of opinion to help maintain peace while we are putting in place policies and permanent solutions.
The president also met with leadership of the Yoruba Sociocultural Group, Afenifere, where he explained why the former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onogen, was suspended before his voluntary retirement on the 28th of May.
I will tell you as Afenifere, that's how I had to deal, no matter how reluctantly, with the former Chief Justice, because there are millions of dollars and euros, not to talk of naira, which were not declared. And I wonder which type of conscience some of us have. How can you sit and preside and lock people up for years and maybe sentence some to death, yet you are not doing what the Constitution said you should do or occupying that vital institution?
President of the Senate, Senator Ahmed Lawan, says the 9th National Assembly will continue with the open NASS, which started in the 8th Assembly. Senator Lawan was speaking when he met with a forum of senators made up of past and present senators who paid him a courtesy visit.
What we have done is to be patriotic. And we belong to political parties, but once we are here, Nigeria is our constituency. So I believe that we need to continue to engage with the public. The public needs to understand what our functions, our roles are. And on this, I believe that we should continue with the openness.
In view of the increasing rate of kidnapping, killings and other crimes across the country, the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Mohammed Adamu, has deployed police dogs to railway stations across the country. At the deployment exercise, Mr. Adamu explained that the deployment is expected to complement the existing security measures put in place for the security and safety of passengers and critical infrastructure.
K9 are known to possess extraordinary capacity for detection of improvised explosive devices, narcotics, and other illicit drugs. The deployment of police dogs is therefore meant for detection of preventing crime along the railway corridors. With today's initiatives, passengers, staff, and indeed all the citizens of this country can further be reassured of their security as they patronize the services of the Nigerian Railway Corporation.
The Presidential Committee on the Impact and Readiness Assessment of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is recommending that Nigeria signs the agreement, but with measures put in place to ensure maximum benefit. The committee, set up in October 2018, submitted its report to President Muhammadu Buhari.
Your Excellency, our report shows that on the balance, Nigeria should consider joining the AFCFTA and using the opportunity of the ongoing AFCFTA Phase 1 negotiations to secure the necessary safeguards required to ensure that our domestic policies and programs are not compromised.
The President also presided over the swearing-in ceremony for the chairman and members of the board of the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, with a charge on them to be fair and just to all tiers and arms of government.
The mandate of the Commission is very wide and has an important role for our country's economy. The Commission must be fair and just to the three tiers and arms of government without compromising its core mandate.
President Buhari is calling for technology assistance to effectively man the nation's porous borders as a way of tackling illicit flow of arms, people, drugs, and resources. The President said this during the presentation of a transnational security report on tackling global illicit flows.
I am aware that one of the key facilitators of transnational organized crime, including illicit flows, is the porous nature of our borders. This is a major challenge to our region. In this context, we will continue to count on the support of our international partners for new technologies to effectively police our borders.